What is up, everybody? This is a different video than you're expecting. You're expecting the Awakening Hercules episode, but there's just been so much going on. Like, up until Sunday, I was like getting people to the airport and getting stuff packed up, cleaning the house, being in contact with the YouTube house, like person who we rented from. So we just haven't had time to do the whole Awakening Hercules thing, but it will be there next week. Today, instead, I have literally my best YouTube chick friend, ChelseaLifts. She's awesome. She's like the master of diet, powerlifting, training, anything. Seriously.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And I'm the master of getting sick.
Oh yeah.
During very inconvenient times in travel and expos. So I apologize for my voice, guys. Seriously. This is the first couple hours that I've actually had my voice back. We're filming this the last day of the YouTube house, so if my voice goes in and out during this, I'm sorry. I know it's annoying, but we want to get this video in for you guys real bad. So
yeah.
Sacrificing the voice.
Do it, dude. Just don't get me sick in the meantime. So we are talking, this is Chopping It Up. As you guys know, Chopping It Up's no edits, just like one big long talk, and it's like a very natural way to like go through a topic. And we start with the main topic, and then we can just go through different tangents and stuff. So it's a great thing to put on in the back of cardio, or while you're driving to work, or whatever you're doing. Maybe take a shower, listen to information in the background. But today's topic I thought would be interesting because Chelsea has been lifting for like a 8, 9 years.
A total of like 9, yeah. Seriously on programs for about 6, but yeah, getting close to a decade.
Yeah,
which isn't that long, but like to say that
right.
Makes you feel a little bit like old, almost.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I feel old. Everything's breaking in my body.
Yeah, I feel super old right now.
Anyways, though, but my point of having her on the Chop It Up is I think she has a good perspective of like females lifting and diet and all sorts of other stuff that like I may not have the best perspective on because obviously, if you haven't noticed by this point, I'm not a female. So I wanted to talk to you about like the relationship between food and dieting and that sort of stuff when it comes to girls trying to either like lean up or like bulk up or gain strength, things like that. So we can just talk about it.
So I think honestly the biggest mistake that I see, especially people in general, but a lot of females make, is they will go online and just try to find the most, not necessarily the most extreme program, but they tend to gravitate towards very short-term type programs that are more extreme and are going to get them results quickly, but really aren't sustainable at all. So,
yeah.
Like for example, I work with a lot of clients that have come from working with other coaches, or maybe they've just tried other diets in the past for themselves. And I find myself often going back and forth a lot with them, trying to figure out the things that fit like into their schedule the best versus what is going to get them the best results. And I think that's kind of the best change for a female to make, since we tend to be very emotional beings. Like, it's very important to find a diet that doesn't make us miserable, that we can stick to. And like one of the things I see a lot of females do is these super high protein diets. And high protein can be good. It's not necessary. It can be good for appetite in certain situations, but a lot of people, such as myself, don't like consuming protein. Things like that make the diet just not enjoyable. And sometimes, making a little change to, from 1.5 pounds of protein, or 1.5 grams of protein per pound of body weight down to even just a gram of protein per pound of body weight, and replacing those calories with carbs, for example, can make a huge difference when it comes to sticking to a diet, whether it's for cutting or bulking or whatever the goal is, especially for women, because you need to make it just not this daily mental struggle. You want to make the whole dieting process something that just kind of fits into your day and becomes kind of like mindless in a sense. You don't want to have to think about it.
You don't want to be struggling the entire time you're doing it.
And one thing that's kind of helped me kind of convey this to clients a little bit, your changing to veganism has helped a lot. 'Cause for example, a lot of you guys know Brian's on 140 to 160-ish grams of protein per day, which is obviously quite a bit below his actual body weight. And for me, I'm on kind of a similar, if you scale it back for my body weight, a similar amount of protein. So for me, anywhere between like 90 and 110 grams of protein per day. And that for me has been something that's made my diet so much more sustainable and enjoyable, because I've taken those calories that I used to be putting into protein, and I can fill them with carbs or fats, and that makes my food palatable. You know, I don't have all these protein-based meals. And that alone has helped so much for me with sticking to my diet. And I've found with a lot of people that I've worked with sticking to their diets, it's a very basic change, and it seems very obvious, but sometimes you really do just have to play around with your food choices, and it can make a huge difference in how much you're actually thinking about food throughout the day.
Yeah, doing less protein gives you more options of what to eat in general, because when you're eating high protein, every single meal is based around how much protein you can shove into it. So then you're like, oh, I can't waste calories on, who knows, like a potato in there, or like some rice in there, or like some noodles in the dish or anything, because that's going to take like all the calories. So instead I'm going to have like just like this huge chunk of protein, and then like maybe a couple vegetables, and then that's probably all the carbs you can get in, and I don't want to put too much fat on it and stuff because I'm already out of calories. And there's like, when I was doing high protein, because like, you know, you've known me for a while, and like my philosophy used to be like, I'm 200 pounds or like 190 pounds, I need to get 300 grams of protein.
And I was on lower protein at that point, and I know I mentioned it to you. And you totally didn't take me seriously.
I was like, you stupid, Chelsea, you need to get more protein in. Because just like broology tells you that.
And I mean, one thing that's kind of unique to females, since we are smaller, we do have to be smarter in a sense with our diet choices, because whether we're cutting or bulking, we have less calories to work with. So if you're gonna find palatable foods that are still allowing you to get all your nutrients in and helping you feel full and fueling your workouts, you kind of need to really get creative and play around with things. And like for me, for example, I talked about how I lowered my protein, upped my carbs. Some people, you might want to keep like a moderate protein diet and eat higher fat. There's the bottom line is, as much as I would like to give some magical like ratio of macros, it's going to vary from person to person how you feel on different things. You might like a higher fat diet. I personally really prefer a higher carb diet, because for me, when I'm eating my meals, some days, a lot of days, I don't even eat meat because I can hit my protein from the protein that's in like the beans and the wraps and the other things that I'm eating, because I have so many calories for carbs even when I'm dieting. Like I typically diet on like 250 carbs, but a huge reason that I'm able to do that is like the lower protein intake, for example. And for me, that fuels better workouts because I have more carbs, and little changes like that, what you will find and what I've found over time, get me not thinking about food day to day. And if you're doing something like dieting, that's very important, because you can either have the weeks really drag on while you're dieting, or they can just kind of fly by, and before you know it, you know, you're at your goal.
Experimentation is definitely key, because like you're saying, if you're struggling through your diet and then you finally get to like just the minimum of the goal you're trying to reach, you're just gonna be like, it's finally over, going right back to what I really want to do. And then oftentimes you'll rebound way past, like you'll just take care of all those 6 weeks of dieting, or 8 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever you just dieted for. You'll just take care of all that in a week of like just going crazy on like yogurt or whatever. I think a good point too is you're saying that like if you lower your protein, sometimes you can replace it with higher carbs, because some people like to eat more, like I feel like carbs are, I wouldn't say they're more satiating, it depends on the type of food you eat, but they can be more filling. But I think it's also interesting to say that some people have a hard time getting calories in, period.
Very true.
So if you're concentrating on getting protein in, then you're chewing all the time, and sometimes you'll come in way under your calories. Because I feel like people sometimes forget that people like are coming from anorexia or like
absolutely
trying to get bigger just in general, right?
Yeah.
So if you could replace protein with higher fat, because you're saying that higher fat might be something.
Yes.
Right?
Higher fat is so much easier to eat. So if you are someone like he's mentioned, protein is the most satiating. So if you're eating very high protein, it could be good for adhering to a low calorie diet. But if you're trying to bring your calories up, it's going to be very hard for you, and you're going to find that, especially if you don't track, you're going to tend to That's why all of these bad coaches tend to go really, really high protein and like veggies, because you're pretty much bound to lose weight with the way that's set up. That doesn't mean that it's going to be sustainable or the best, but it's that kind of stuff is so filling that it's very, very hard to actually overeat on that. You still can, but it's a lot harder. And another thing that I've noticed that women tend to do is when they're looking for like diets, for whatever their goal is, they tend to, I found, gravitate towards diets that put them in a deficit or near it like all the time.
Yeah.
And just another topic I want to touch on kind of briefly is you have to understand that if you have strength or muscle gain as a goal, we kind of have to do the same thing that guys do, and most of these women's magazines or women's websites are geared towards diets that are very low calorie. And the bottom line is, if you want to put on strength or muscle, you really need to have periods of time where you're in a prolonged surplus. It doesn't have to be a big surplus. It could honestly probably be a smaller surplus than for guys, because we're not going to put on muscle nearly as quickly. So you could probably gain like a pound a month and still make very, very good gains.
Such a good point.
Compared to these women that are just, pulling these diets out of these magazines or these women's websites, because they just tend to always give advice for weight loss, and I never really see anything for weight gain. But if you look at any of the really successful like women's powerlifters or figure competitors, they all have periods of time where they bulk. Like Megan from the YouTube house has had periods of prolonged surpluses where she's put on muscle. Another name that comes to mind, I'm not sure if you're familiar, is Leanna Carr. She does both figure and powerlifting. All of those women have the muscle mass and the strength that they do because they do that. And that's a huge differentiating factor between like the average woman that works out really hard but stuck on this low calorie diet and these very high performing athletes. And it's not to say that you have to eat to put on muscle. If that's not your goal, that's totally fine. But understand, if you have that goal, that's a big mistake that I see all the time. And I would highly recommend setting out a period of say like 6 months, and you could decide to only gain like 5 pounds or so, but it's going to make a huge difference.
Absolutely.
Huge difference.
Because I see you do this all the time. Mm-hmm. You're obviously much more experienced than a lot of people who are getting into it in the beginning. So you know how you work. You do your bulking and your cutting, and you if you need to do you need to increase your lifts or whatever, you slowly bulk up, and I see you you'll be like, oh, I'm not cut right now, you know what I mean? But I'm gonna get cut later, but right now I'm focusing on bringing up my 3 lifts or this specific lift and things like that. That's a very healthy relationship with food, because you understand that when you're eating a bit more and you're trying to gain athletic performance, you're trying to gain your strength, whatever, you understand that things are going to change a bit. You're not going to be as vascular and things like that. Whereas some girls will try to add weight, and they'll see their boyfriend or they'll see whatever person eating more and they're gaining size and weight, so they're like, okay, I'm gonna eat more, and they don't put 2 and 2 together that they're gonna get a bit bigger. The strength is gonna go up, but you're gonna add water and fat. Your face is gonna look a little different. Your bone structure is gonna look a little different. But for you, I've always seen you be very calm with it. You're right now I'm holding a little bit of water, fat right here, but it's not a bad thing.
I think just having a set plan for what you're gonna do helps so much mentally with that, because especially with women, we can have such transient changes in even water. You need to have some way to prepare yourself mentally for that. And the worst thing that you can do is just see that little bit of gain and then diet yourself right back down. That honestly, you know, it kills me when I hear people say like women won't put on any significant amount of muscle. Most don't, because of this situation that they get themselves in. You know, they're almost always in a deficit, or as soon as they start gaining weight and some strength, they diet right back down. So obviously they're not going to be able to put on as much muscle, which again, if you don't care to put on that much muscle, that's fine. But that's something that you need to take into account if you want to compete successfully, or maybe do like figure show, or if you just want to be buff.
That's what I want to do.
Just be buff.
Like obese to beast.
Obese to buff.
To buff. So like I think it's the point of this topic really is to have a healthy relationship with food and understand what happens with your body as you do certain things. So I think it's very important to like educate yourself so that you understand what's going to happen as you do different types of like programs, you know, bulking up, trying to add strength, trying to add muscle. You understand like also like I guess the side effects of like how much fat you're going to gain. And then also knowing that in the future you are going to diet down and you're going to lose a bit of strength, but you're going to take care of these problems that you might be concerned with as you're bulking up. I feel like a lot of girls just think like, I'm just fat now. But it's like, you're not just fat now, you're adding strength, you're adding muscle and whatnot like that.
Well, and it makes dieting so much easier because you have that muscle mass that's going to make a huge difference on the calories that you get to diet on. Like I usually get to start my diet on like 2,000 calories or so, whereas a lot of women have to start. And I mean, people like to bash like the lower calorie ranges, but the bottom line is if you're a very small person, you just don't burn that many calories. I've seen women that are perfectly healthy have to start on like 1,700 calories, and if you have a small amount of muscle mass, there's really nothing you can do about that other than be overly active so you can eat more. But as far as your like base metabolic rate, you can't do a whole lot about it except for put on muscle mass. So that's something to consider too. If you want to be able to lean down on more calories, you know, spend 6 months putting on 5 pounds very slowly on a good program where you're progressing consistently week to week. And you're going to find that when you shed that same amount of fat off, it's not going to be that difficult.
So I would say ultimately, do some research yourself so that you can be more confident as you're doing the different phases of bulking and cutting, and knowing that like you like don't trick yourself. Don't be like, oh, I haven't gained any size or strength because I can't see it in the mirror. You're bulking, that's what happens. Or vice versa, when you're cutting, you're not super small, you're just in the middle of cutting. Once you eat all those calories again and you're getting those intense workouts again, you're gonna feel a lot bigger. So educate yourself by reading a bunch of things online, searching. That's how most of us have like gotten our base knowledge. And then, you know, you went through college and things like that. After you like kind of learned like that, I like this kind of information. I like this. So then you went and got your
I have my bachelor's in ex-phys, minored in nutrition, and then I also have my CSCS. For those of you that are familiar with that.
Just brag it all out.
I know on the internet that's not really anything too significant, but yeah, I have spent a lot of time in the field, worked with hundreds of people at this point as well, and done quite a bit of experimenting with just different things to increase sustainability and just even enjoyability of a diet, playing around with like macro ratios and stuff like that as well.
So there's also people like Chelsea
consider,
who are on YouTube making videos so that you don't necessarily have to go read through it all yourself, and she can just tell you in videos, in vlogs, in exercise informational videos, educational videos she puts out. So you can just learn without having to read, and you can just hear it in your ears. But also she offers coaching, so that's another way that you can really get a hands-on kind of education. Whereas like if you read something, you're gonna have to apply it to yourself, and maybe you won't apply it right, or maybe you won't feel confident that you are applying it right. But if you have someone who has already learned all this stuff before you, you go through a coaching plan and you do, you know, like, okay, I'm gonna do 8 weeks of bulking, and then she teaches you basically how to do it while you're going through the coaching plan. You're gonna feel a lot more confident because you're like, oh, I get it, I did it this way, that's the way that I should bulk.
And the cool thing is, like, if you do your research and you pick a good coach, like me, for example, I will answer any question you have. I have enough people coming in that I don't need to keep you to keep my business going. So my ultimate goal is, after you have picked a period of time that you want to work with me, I want you to be able to continue after that. That, you know, my living and my well-being doesn't rely on that. And I know Brian's the same way. I actually just saw today one of his templates, like he literally has, do you have any questions? Having access to somebody that can answer those for you on a weekly basis can also really speed up the process and save you a lot of time spinning your wheels, because I know before I went to college, I wasted a lot of time just trying to figure out things on my own.
You and I both did the stupid thing.
Yeah. We were talking about earlier how we both did bro splits for like years.
And by bro splits, she means like we would do a separate muscle each day. Like I would have a tricep day.
Yeah, I had a bicep day.
Yep. And that doesn't get you nearly as optimal results as actually learning to do more volume.
But yeah, if you are unsure, really any coach that's willing to not only guide you along the way and confirm any, you know, any ideas that you have or questions that you have, and just help you learn about the process, the investment can be very worthwhile. You know, it's definitely something I would have invested in before I actually invested in college. It would have saved quite a bit of time, for sure.
It's something to consider for sure. But I just thought it was an interesting thing to say, like, you know, go research yourself. If you feel like you want some hands-on experience, go find a good coach that can help a lot to get you further into the research. And really, I just want you guys to have a healthier relationship with calories, because I see people come in all the time, especially now that I've had a more vegan-based like community. I see a lot of people who follow the HCLF, which is high carb, low fat diet, which is cool. Like, do whatever you want to do. I think whatever you want to do, whatever makes you happy is what you should do. But a lot of people have a hard time getting enough calories in, because low fat, you're not really getting like tons of protein. You're really just focusing on eating tons of carbs. For a lot of girls, like for a lot of people, period, they don't like chewing that much. I like to chew, so I could do that no problem. Yeah. But a lot of people will be like, you know what, I'm full, and then really they only got 800 calories in that day because they ate 7 pounds of broccoli.
Any type of veganism has you eating a ton of fruits and vegetables, just kind of by design, and it's very easy to fill up on that, and it's very easy to tend to undereat. One thing I actually have found, veganism is another great example of something that a lot of people have found that just make their diet sustainable. I've noticed that a lot lately as the topics kind of come up. Like a lot of girls that have had pasts with like eating disorders or something similar to that have found veganism to really help them with that too. So that's also something to consider. I know you mostly already have a very large vegan audience, but again, there's macro ratios, and there's also just kind of eating lifestyles like veganism that could help you out quite a bit.
True. So, I hope you guys enjoyed the Choppin' It Up. We just wanted to go over a bunch of different topics, but generally like focused around the idea of having a healthy relationship with food, because I feel like everybody should have that, because that's really the only way that you're going to have sustainability in the future, instead of like flip-flopping through different diets and opening Cosmo and seeing the 6-week, banana butt cleanse and stuff. You know, like you should feel okay with eating food.
Absolutely.
You know?
And honestly, if any of you have any questions, I'd love for you to come on over to the channel. I'd like to start doing some specifically diet-related Q&As, because I've found as I've focused more on my own diet, I've loved how I've been able to impact people, so I do want to start answering some more questions on a very regular basis. So I don't know what video is going to be up by the time this one's up, but just come on over, leave a question down below if you have one, and I would really like to put a Q&A together for you guys and just answer as many questions as possible, vegan or not, whatever dieting preference you have. I just want to help you guys out.
There you go, guys. Go check her out. ChelseaLifts, one of my best friends in the world.
Thank you very much.
Subscribe if you enjoy the content, and we'll see you guys later. Team Beyond the Week, CT.
Lift heavy or die, MIRIN, motherfucker.